Hi everyone and welcome back to Coachy TV. Today we're going to talk about a workout pace that's very indicative of the event that it's for. We're looking at marathon pace workouts here. So this would be good for somebody who is more on their own trying to get ready for a marathon or a half marathon or possibly a 10 or 15K. These would be beneficial for those. This would not be something that your average high schooler would be doing to get ready for a 5K or in track, the 2 mile, or even a college athlete getting ready for a 5K on the track or anything like that. This is something very specific for that person that wants to get better at these super long distance races. Marathon, half marathon, maybe as short as a 10K, and we'll take a look at that when we talk about the design adaptations. If you do a lot of these workouts in the way that they would help a marathon or half marathon or these really long races, this would actually work against what you would be trying to do in those shorter races that are traditionally done at high school, college, or in the middle school ranks. I am Kyle Giacono. I'm the head boys cross country and track coach at Wharton High School in Tampa, Florida, and I have been for the last 6 years. If you want a closer look at my credentials, they are there on the screen. So first, let's talk about where someone's marathon pace would be as we look at the scientific side of this. We're going to look just the science side of this here today, and then tomorrow I'll release a video that talks about the training design. So if we were to pinpoint somebody's marathon pace, where these workouts would be, if we were to test this, I always advocate doing a VO2 max test when setting up workouts, not just trying to guess at where somebody's workout pace would be. And this is how you would do it. If you missed our video on using VO2 max testing to set up workout paces, it's in the description down below. I would definitely take a look at that if you want a more in-depth look at this. But short way of looking at it is I recommend this Astron test, which starts with a really good solid warm-up for whoever it is you're testing. And you would run 2 miles, their best possible pace, and whatever their 2 mile is, you take the mile pace, and that is their VO2 max, their maximum ability to use oxygen. And then we're going to take the percentage of that to figure out whatever these different workout paces today when we're looking at marathon pace. We'll take a look at that in a second. So let's say theoretically, whoever you're testing runs 10:30. The velocity, or the VVO2 max, the velocity at which they reach VO2 max, is going to be 5:15 on this day. So what you would do is you multiply 5 by 60 plus 15 to get the total number of seconds here in a mile at VO2 max for this person, and you have 3:15. So what we're going to do here is we've got marathon pace. Marathon pace is 82% of date pace VVO2 max. The idea being is theoretically somebody who can run a 2 mile in 10:30, they should be able to, if trained properly, run a marathon at this pace. It doesn't mean that obviously they can. You've got a high schooler that can run 10:30. They're not going to be able to go out a couple days later and run a marathon at this pace. It just means theoretically that's that person's potential with this metric, and this is where you would want to create these workouts if training for this workout type. So if we deal with 82% is marathon pace for this person, you take 3:15, you divide it by 0.82, and you get 384 seconds. This person's marathon pace is 6:42, excuse me. So if they were to run a marathon, their best effort, if they were trained all the way through to run a marathon, this is the pace they would be able to theoretically run it in based on their current fitness level. I would suggest probably if you were to train, you're probably watching this only to train yourself on this, you would probably give yourself a range of anywhere between 80 and 82, just so you're not so close of, oh, if I'm not at 6:42, it's not right on. Right around that range will get you what you're looking for. If you watched our lactic threshold video series, and it's in the description down below, you will recognize this as a portion of what we called moderate tempo, which was 78 to 82%. And what we're going to look at here is a lot of the adaptations we're looking at in terms of moderate tempo is what we're looking at here from marathon pace, but there's one very key difference that's going to change the amount of times we would do this workout, and we'll go into that a little bit more in depth tomorrow when I release the training design video. So if we look at an energy continuum here, all the way off to the right is your easy pace run, 70 to 65%. This is aerobic threshold running right here. All the way out to the left will be your fastest pace you could possibly run. This would be a max speed drill, like 50 meters as fast as you can. The different paces for workouts are in here in races. Your 800 meters is over here, 1500 meter. VO2 max is right here. It's 100% of your aerobic side, and anything that's faster than this is coming from the energy system. That's why these are called combined zone races. You got your 5K, your 10K. You've got your true lactic threshold runs, or right where your body can produce and clear lactate in the same level. And then slower than that, all the way down here in the aerobic threshold running zone, is your marathon pace. at 82%. This is very important to consider when you're looking at this, because this is in the green zone. This is an aerobic threshold run, something you can theoretically do for this range, 40 to 90 minutes. You could probably do up to 2 hours if you needed to. Obviously, a marathon is going to be longer than 2 hours, so in a race situation, you could do it for even longer. But the key here is this is slower than lactic threshold. Okay, right here is the point in which your body is producing and clearing lactate in unison. Your aerobic and anaerobic systems are both being used in a way that you're not going to have a limiting factor from a buildup of hydrogen ions. There is no buildup of acid at this level of intensity, provided that you're dealing with somebody who's in shape. Now, the first time somebody goes out, your lactic threshold is actually going to be closer to your aerobic threshold. But as you get trained, we'll say that 82%, the limiting factor on these days should not be the buildup of acid. It should not be the waste products from the anaerobic system. Whereas if you're doing an interval day or a VO2 max type of day up here, the limiting factor on these days is the buildup of acid. Your body can't clear it. That's not what we're dealing with here today. This is in the aerobic threshold training regimen that we're dealing with here. So, just understand that as you're in shape, the limiting factor on these days, again, once you're actually in shape to be able to run these types of intensities, is going to be twofold. One is going to be, does your body have the amount of fuel sources to run these types of times? Okay, this type of duration, the limiting factor. How much stored carbohydrates and fats do you have to complete the workout? And then also there's obviously a mental fatigue of knowing, okay, I'm going out these types of durations. Can I mentally sort of stay in the ball game here? So just understand that once you're in shape, those are the two limiting factors. So let's talk about the designed adaptations of marathon pace training. Big one here is cardiovascular system. The marathon, as we just saw, is run at an aerobic threshold intensity. You have to get your heart able to move more blood and oxygen to the working muscles. So one of the biggest ones here is that your heart is going to get bigger when you run at this intensity. Specifically, the left ventricle, the actual pump, is larger when you do these types of training after you do it for a period of time. Decreased resting heart rate is really just in the fact that your body doesn't have to work as hard when you're not working to move blood, because you've made all these adaptations. This is more of a sign that you're getting fit, and it's not really something that's directly impacting your performance. But you are also going to have increased stroke volume and increased cardiac output. Basically, that means your body is moving more blood from things like a bigger pump in your heart. You're going to have increased blood flow. The blood just moves a lot better from all these different things we're talking about. Increased blood volume, more overall blood, and improved composition. The ability for your body to hold more oxygen on the blood, things like that are going to be improved with this type of training. We're going to have muscular system adaptations. This isn't a tempo type workout regimen. So we have these oxidative fast twitch muscle fibers are going to be increase their aerobic abilities. This is something that is done only at these tempo type paces, really close to or right at lactic threshold. And it is important for a marathon type runner or a half marathon to have this happen. We're not really wanting to have super fast twitch ability to really churn out a lot of energy anaerobically. We want to have all of these muscles that can act aerobically working aerobically. So essentially, oversimplicity here is you have basically 3 different muscle fiber types. You have ones that always act like slow twitch, your aerobic muscles. You have ones that always act like fast twitch, and those are fast twitch 2 or fast twitch X fibers. And then there's ones that are right in the middle. They can act either aerobically or anaerobically depending on how you train them. Training at this marathon pace will make these hybrid muscle fiber types act much more like slow twitch. And that's a very important thing for somebody that's going to be running a marathon. We want that to happen. That's why I have it highlighted here, because it is so important. Your slow twitch muscle fibers, the ones that always act slow twitch, are going to be enhanced. There's some disagreement of if this is something that happens because they get bigger or maybe they're just better at what they're doing. But either way, we do know that they are enhanced. You're going to have more capillaries working through the muscles. So not only do you have a bigger heart pumping more blood, but you have more pathways for them to move through your muscles. Increase mitochondria size, number, and surface area. Mitochondria are what produce all of your energy aerobically. You're going to get bigger ones. They're going to have more of them, and they're going to have more surface area. You're going to have enhanced running economy, meaning it takes less energy for you to take each step, which is very important for these very long distances. You're going to be more economical with your fuel sources. and metabolic systems. And this is really the key for marathon pace running here that we're looking at. So we have increased ability to remove lactic acid. We want to make sure that we're having no acid being built up. This is right below lactic threshold, so you are going to have some of this happening, so that in a marathon or a half marathon you'd have no buildup of acid because we're so aerobically fit. This is really the two big keys here that we're looking at. Increased fat storage and use, and increased glycogen storage and use. These are the two main fuel sources that you're using whenever you're doing anything aerobically, and most of the time anaerobically too, in terms of glycogen. So we'll talk about these here for a second. Your body can store, this is stored glucose or stored carbohydrates or sugars, is going to store more of this and put them close to your working muscles. This is something we've talked about in a lot of different aerobic training that happens. But the real important thing here with doing marathon paces and doing them very much more often than you would do them if you're training for a 5K or shorter is this right here. The body typically will not use fat as a storage when you get above about 70% VO2 max. And remember that energy continuum, we're at 82% here. The reason is that fat is very, very good at storing energy, but it's a very complex molecule. Your body has to go through a lot of steps to break apart the different molecules so it can get at the energy and make ATP. And when you start to need energy faster, as you get faster and faster in your workouts, it starts to rely less and less on fat and more on carbohydrates or glycogen. So the idea being is you want to be able to have more of this fuel source, fat, be used at faster intensities. And doing more of these workouts, marathon pace, is going to allow that to happen at faster intensities, faster than 70, so 75, 80, hopefully up to 82% when you're ready for that marathon, so that you can use this fuel source. Your body can store days, weeks worth of fat. It can only store about 2 hours worth of glycogen. No human has been able to do a marathon in under 2 hours, so the idea being is if you want to be able to complete a marathon, we need to be able to use more of these fats because we're going to take longer than 2 hours, so we can't just rely on the glycogen. Doing this pace lets us store more of this fat and use it at faster intensities. This is really the key here when you're trying to train for a marathon or a half marathon. We're also going to have increased aerobic enzyme volume and activity. We want to be able to use more energy aerobically, and so we're going to have these enzymes or the ability to produce this energy aerobically. Now, these changes are very similar to aerobic threshold running. This is an aerobic threshold type run technically, and we did a whole video series on that. It is in the description down below if you want to take a closer look. So obviously, you're training for a marathon, you have to run miles. But just as a refresher, in order for you to have these aerobic adaptations, you have to be going for at least 20 continuous minutes. Anything less than 20 minutes and you're not doing anything on that day. Your body releases a protein-like hormone from the heart that only happens after 20 minutes, that are primarily responsible for these cardiovascular, muscular, and metabolic system changes. So if you wanted to, okay, I've been doing a lot of really hard work recently, I want to take an easy day, I'm only going to run 15 minutes, you're better off taking an off day. You're not getting anything out of that day in terms of any adaptation. So just remember, again, if you're training for a marathon, you're obviously going to be running longer than 20 minutes, but just don't get crazy on one of these days and think I'm going to go super short. And as I mentioned, this pace is best for very long races, possibly the 10K, definitely half marathon and marathon, so it's not ideal for high schoolers unless you just have somebody that really wants to give a shot at doing one of these things, and it's not going to be during your normal high school cross country or track season. So that's what we're really looking at here for today, the science behind this. Tomorrow I'll release a video in terms of the training design, different workouts you can do at this intensity and how often you would do it, because that's really the key of this workout, is the amount of times you would do it. If you like this video, please like or subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments down below. And until next time, this has been Coachy TV.